You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, and you're still with us. And before we now push our conversation on the second part of the Electoral Bill Act, at the Senate, let's take this background report.
The guideline of INEC comes from the law. It is drawn, it is not extraneous of whether the what do you call it, the Electoral Act or the Constitution. We must also be very careful in not legislating in a way that makes it difficult for institutions to have discretion.
Can we have also the data of consultations that the legislator have with their constituencies? Can we have that data? Now, a lot of legislators are hiding under insecurity. They don't even have a constituency, but they win elections. They go back, they win elections, they campaign. So how many times did you go back to consult your people? Some of them that claim that they have constituency offices, their constituency offices is just one store and a bench. A store and a bench with one big signboard that said this is the constituency office of so person. There is never any person there. Sometimes as soon as they win election, they just go and construct something, and in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, the place is already overgrown with weed. And you say that is your constituency office. So it is important that consultation, information helps to dispel a lot of mistrust. So if you are doing, because like Eze talked about, the power of the gavel is not stronger than the power of the people.
We cannot have a system that is better than our infrastructure. Just come to think of it. And when you talk about even infrastructure, we're not just talking about, what you see on the ground, but it also talks about our capacity, our systems, our process, holistically. And, Faith even alluded to something also very important. Some of this service delivery, because it's tied to service delivery, why don't we have them at local level? What is so grand about them that we don't even have the barriers minimum? Primary school, access to potable drinking water. And then you leave INEC. And you see, and from all of this conversation, you just even have to pity INEC as an institution. Because during election, they are literally providing every single thing that different arms of government are supposed to provide. So again, yes, we always play catch up. I hope that we're able to get it right. Hopefully the electoral amendment process would help us to rethink and reflect and take the needed action.
All right, that was the first part of our conversation on Electoral Act Amendment Bill yesterday, and of course my colleague Jume wasn't set. I'm happy she's also here today. Well, let me begin the introduction. We have a new set of guests that will be, of course, giving us their own perspectives to that particular issue, as well as other clause-by-clause decisions taken by the National Assembly. We have in the studio Yusuf Dantali, who is the chairman of Inter-Party Advisory Council, and we are glad that you're able to join us. Good morning. Also here with us is Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst and our own in-house commentator. Jide, it's good to see you.
Same here.
I
miss you too.
Yes, I missed you on Sunday.
Well, don't worry. I'm here.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Claire and Jumai, and good morning, Nigerians.
Yes, we also have Chiziodo Esquire, legal practitioner and public affairs commentator. Good morning, it's good to have you.
Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning, Nigerians. Okay, Claire.
Okay, I really want us to look at some of the decisions taken by the National Assembly, because the issue of e-transmission, is out there. Everybody's talking about it, but people, seem to have forgotten that there were other decisions involving the amendments that, the Senate, took decisions at. For instance, the clause 47 on voter identification. There's also, I think, clause 22, vote buying and all that. But let's start. Let me start with the IPAC chairman first of all. With regards to other clauses, what are your perspectives? What do you think about them? That's the retention of the PVC as the permanent, voter card. Of course, the extension of the timeline for INEC, and there are others as well.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians. I want to start by commenting on, let's even know what is this transmission thing, this electronic that we are all talking about. First, I want to congratulate Nigerians for sustaining that democracy for 27 years. And it's a welcome development. As we advance, we also advance the process of electioneering. It's a welcome development. Electronic transmission, welcome, is good, but we must understand what exactly we want to achieve. If you can't just come out because we're anxious about electronic transmission, or because our emotion, we feel that when we transmit election electronically, it will give us automatic fair or credible election. We have to begin to look at the institutions. Does INEC have the wherewithal to provide the internet?
Sorry, IPAC chairman. Yes, I said we will come to that.
Okay.
I mean, yesterday there was a very robust conversation on that, but we will get to that.
Okay.
Let's talk about the ones that people have not. Actually talked about.
Okay.
I'm talking about first of all, the clause 47, rejection of the proposal to allow alternative forms of identification for voting other than PVC.
I agree with that 100% for now, because what we have tried, we in IPAC, we have tried it before in the last administration of INEC. We tried to see how we can influence INEC to harmonize means of identification for Nigerians, like in some countries where the PVC is equivalent to the national identification card, is equivalent to the instrument or bank instrument for individuals. But then the problem is about the harmonization of data. But INEC made us to understand that it's not something that can happen overnight. It will take some time to bring the entire data together for you to have one means of identification. But since that is not done yet, I will suggest, I'm of the opinion that the PVC be retained as it is today, as the major instrument of identification for voting in Nigeria.
But isn't it also, Jide, that the BVAS does not read the microchip embedded in the PVC?
No, it does.
It does?
Yeah. And that's actually the reason why you cannot, at this point, adopt any other means of identification for voting, because the BVAS has been designed to read the microchip on the PVC. So once you swipe the PVC on BVAS, your details are automatically uploaded. And you know, BVAS is multi-user. It's used for voter registration. It's used for voter accreditation. It's used to upload results on the IRF portal. So it all depends on what you want BVAS to do per time. Unlike smart card reader, you know, with BVAS, your eyeball, for instance, if with smart card reader, if your fingers are not captured, you are disenfranchised. Remember, former President Goodluck Jonathan had it difficult to vote in the 2015 election. I was in Otuoke, in 2011 I was in Otuoke to observe him vote. Now, when INEC now upgraded smart card reader to BVAS, we were told that BVAS can read your fingerprints, can recognize your iris, can also serve as a QR code, that there is a QR code that it also, so.
But there have been cases during past elections where, people were disenfranchised because the BVAS could not read their details.
Yes, and that's, you see, every device, and that's why we need to be very careful what we are pushing, so that we don't push ourselves into a situation that will haunt us. They said, be careful what you ask for, because you may have it. You know, one thing that INEC has gotten 100% right now is accreditation. If you remember where we are coming from 2011, INEC was using incident form.
Incident form.
So if your fingers cannot be captured, they use incident form. Now that incident form was being abused by politicians who will now induce presiding officers to bypass. But with beavers, there are multiple means of identifying you, and that's why. And when you look at the rejection rate, it's very, very low. It's less than 1%. As in people who their iris cannot be recognized by beavers, their fingerprints cannot, their QR code cannot. So it's
like ladies with eye.
So at the end of the day, it has resolved largely the abuse of incident form, because INEC has said by 2019, incident form is dead. They cannot. If the beavers cannot capture you, you will not vote. But you see, coming back to and that's why I said PVC. I read somewhere that INEC is trying to do revalidation of revalidation and re-registration. I don't know how far that is true. I read this somewhere, which possibly means that maybe we are going to be issued a fresh PVC. I registered way back in 2010. 2010 to now is 16 years. But they call it permanent. But some people's own has been damaged, and that's why opportunities for continuous voter registration is used to replace damaged voters and all of that.
Okay. We're still looking at the grey areas in the electoral bill, and of course, we've talked about transmission of results yesterday extensively with our guest here in the studio, which we're going to talk about too. But while we talk about INEC still, let's look at the timing and deadline problems that indeed INEC might, encounter, INEC notices an electoral calendar. It's a problem, because without INEC having full control of what they do, the election itself will not be credible indeed. So let me bring in Mr. Chidi into this conversation. Timing and deadline is very, very important. And if this Electoral Act bill is passed with a new date for election, like back to November, like they said earlier, how is it going to affect INEC itself and the election process?
It will affect INEC adversely if the Senate or the National Assembly delays or stagnates in passing the Electoral Amendment Bill. It will stultify INEC in conducting the election, because INEC has already reduced the timeline for notice for election from 360 to 180 days. So the Senate of the National Assembly must do everything possible to make sure that the Act is passed immediately, so that INEC will commence their preparation for the election. Failure to pass the bill immediately is going to hurt INEC chances of conducting the election within the timeline already circumscribed by the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. It will affect them greatly.
So where are the grey areas now in this clause itself?
The grey area there, because election is already coming. If this Electoral Act will be used for the next election, it means that in a few months, the preparation for election should start. And the National Assembly has not even passed the act. You saw the drama that happened in the Senate, where they mentioned transfer and transmission based on, proposal by the Senate Chief Whip. I don't know what they want to achieve by that, but we heard that today they have an emergency meeting. I think they may, I don't know, I don't have crystal ball, but I just believe and think that they want to expedite action or harmonize their opinion on the Electoral Amendment Act to conform with what the Electoral Committee has already proposed for transmission of, the results.
And must INEC wait for the act to be passed before they give a timeline for elections?
INEC does not operate on its own. INEC operates. INEC
it's on laws.
a product of Constitution and the Electoral Act. So if INEC is going to work, what is INEC going to use as its own
I'm answering this question for somebody because somebody asked me the question and I said we're discussing part 2 of the Electoral Act. Must INEC wait?
No. Just like you now, you have the time you are supposed to start this program.
Yes.
And you know there are questions you cannot ask here. So the same thing, INEC will want, if INEC must work, INEC will have to work within a set of specified laws. So until those laws are set, so INEC cannot do anything. So for us, the only thing holding on now is when the National Assembly is able to harmonize.
That's why they have reconvened. That's why they have reconvened today, or they are reconvening today.
So for now, INEC,
what are your expectations from the plenary today, the special plenary? What are you expecting the Senate to do?
You can't preempt the National Assembly because you don't know. They are all Nigerians and then they are players. So I'm not expecting anything, but I'm very positive that they will do what is right because they are products. Democracy brought them those to do everything that need to be done to ensure that we have a better democratic space.
Okay, let me take you on Jumei's question about the timeline. And as chairman of IPAC, you must be concerned about how these shorter timelines affect, smaller parties and independent parties. And I'm also, wondering whether the shorter timeline would result in efficiency, well-managed electoral process, or do you think it will harm the process?
I'm not good at I don't really welcome short-term solutions to problems. If we are talking of election is not just about democracy, is not about 2027. Okay, 2027, 2031, another administration is gone. So we must look at this thing from the foundation. What do we really need? So we shouldn't look at how anxious we are to have A, B, C done before 2027. If it is possible, fine. But if it is not possible, let's look at what needs to be done for us to have a sustainable democratic system. So this is my own approach to it. So waiting because 2027, we have had administration from 2019. Today we have had series of administration. And then we must be sincere in whatever we want to do. Today we have some persons in the National Assembly. They were not there yesterday. Tomorrow the same people will not be there. Those who refuse to do what they are supposed to do yesterday, they are affected by what they refuse to do today. There are some people today in opposition who are trying to see how they can come into coalition, to see how they can take power. These are some persons who had the opportunity to do what they want to do today.
But was IPAC not part of all the processes before at this time? Because I'm wondering how, yes.
IPAC does not have executive powers to do anything. What IPAC does is to advise, is to discuss, because all the political parties are members of the Interparty Advisory Council. So what we do is, okay, if we do this, that will be better. If you do that, this will be better. So it is left for those that are mandated or who have the powers to do it, recognized by law to do it.
So what did IPAC recommend with regards to clause 28 and 29 on these timeline adjustments, from 360 to 180 days? And then 120 to 90 days. What was IPAC's recommendation?
IPAC's recommendation in the last meeting we had with INEC on this is this. What we have today at 360 is from IPAC. It's what IPAC proposition. But some stakeholders look at some things that they say that the time it is cost, it is politicians or political actors spend more money when you have 365 days. That for that period, you continue to interact, you continue to interface with your constituents, and what is spent is too long. That is one. Two, they talk about security of the individuals in question. That within that period is too wide for those who want the persons that won the primary election to be taken out or otherwise.
So, because the Senate's chairman on public, I think media and public affairs, Senator Daramola, was on air yesterday, and he gave a reason. That the reason is because that time, between when, the winner or the whatever is actually given full authority to rule, that he would have spent half of, the mandated tenure. So, and then people will ask about what he's been able to achieve. So that this timeline now would enable, candidates or winners to settle down and then, deliver the democratic dividends. Is it feasible? Does it make sense to you, Jide?
You see, this is why we should not use emotions to drive reforms. I knew the advocacy people were making. We used to have 180 days for the, and this is, we should not confuse electoral planning and governance. Yeah, the argument I'm getting from you, that was the senator put it, the senator you are under reference to, is about governance. This one is about electoral planning. Now, this is the argument. I have followed through. I have been in this stuff for over close to 30 years now. We used to have 180 days for the preparation for elections. And actors came up and said, look, a presidential candidate is expected to run campaigns across a vast country like Nigeria, 36 states, 768 local government and 6 area councils, and all of that. How feasible is that within 180 days? So that argument was pushed, and that was why in 2010, the amendment was made to allow for 360 days, believing that 150 days out of these 360 days will be used for campaigns. Now, you are not forced to go on the streets and start spending money on campaigns. If you decide that you just want to do open campaign in the last 2 weeks of the campaign period, so be it. Nobody will compare. I just came back from Ekiti State. Ekiti is having an election on June 20. You get? Campaigns have started, but you will not see any of the candidates mounting the rostrums and campaigning. They want to husband their resources. They want to manage their resources in such a way that they will now roll out in intense campaign in the last 60 days or 30 days. But you can do your political engineering, political canvassing behind the scene, depending on the mode of campaign you want to follow through. Now, this is the danger of what National Assembly is doing. INEC met last week with civil society. I was not physically there because I was on the field, but I got the speech of the chairman where he said they already have the timetable for 2027. They are only waiting on the National Assembly to finalize this act. Now, INEC is bound, I think by February 25. If a new act is not in place, INEC will have to mandatorily publish what it has already drafted. Do you get? Because this whole issue of reducing to 180 days, that means that INEC will have to go and replan based on that law. But I don't see the feasibility. Unless they want to short-circuit the process, I don't see the feasibility of the National Assembly meeting up in passing the act and getting the president's assent between now and February 25. Why did I say so? The two chambers passed different versions. If they had passed the same version, it would just be
easy to harmonize.
Transmit to the clerk of the house, the clerk of the house transmits to the president. Now, the law gives the president 30 days window within which to review. And he will not do the personal review himself. He will minute the draft bill to Office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and a copy will be sent to INEC. Peruse this thing. Do you have issues with it? If you have issues, minute back to me. It is what the two, at least I know those two, it is what those two sends back to the president that will inform the presidential assent or withholding of assent. Now, can all of this be done within the next fortnight? Because we are down to 15 days. for INEC to release the timetable or not. So if they will still be talking about setting up harmonization committee today, and then they will sit for 1 week, another one week is gone. You have 1 week, then by the time, it's not the day you pass the final, it's not the day you pass it that the clerk will take it to the president. You don't do that. You recall the whole issue about tax law. Oh, this is not the version we passed, this is the version we passed. The clerk of the act will have to ensure that the version that is transmitted to the president is actually the version that is passed by the National Assembly, the two chamber and the conference committee, before it gets to the president. So tell me, how feasible is all of this in 2 weeks? Which is why I blame the National Assembly for being clever by half. This law should have been passed since June of 2025, so that there is sufficient time for electoral planning. People don't understand that INEC needs resources to plan for election. Now, the budget for 2026 is being considered by the National Assembly. Whatever the National Assembly pass in terms of electoral reform may have cost implication in terms of how much INEC will need to conduct the election. So you can see how interwoven this whole thing is.
It's interwoven. Let me come in here, Claire. You know, we're discussing about INEC timelines, you know, and the deadline and problems, and we're also looking at the contradiction in the Electoral Act itself before it is passed, you know. And some people have argued, I want your legal expertise here, that if the law, amended law, you sort of changes the timeline or doesn't clearly resolve this, it could create legal uncertainties for INEC itself, the planning, procurement, and voter mobilization. What do you think?
Well, you know, INEC, the Electoral Act is also a product of the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the nation. Therefore, if INEC, if a National Assembly could not pass this act within the timeline stipulated in their own law, I think the hands of the INEC will be tied. They will have no option than to rely on the last Electoral Act, because according to what my friend here is saying, it is practically impossible for the National Assembly to harmonize the bill and then get the assent of the president before 25th of February. If, peradventure, the bill could not be passed within the circumstantial timeline, I think INEC will have no option than to rely on the Electoral Act of 2022. That is my opinion, because you cannot compel them to do the impossible.
Okay,
you cannot compel them to do the impossible.
Let's hear it.
No, that's the law. Because you see, people don't know that electoral planning is very tedious and you have to be painstaking. Otherwise, my brothers here, his constituency will run INEC out of office with litigation. You understand? Because everybody is watching INEC now. People are saying, INEC, go and release the timetable. Yes. Let me give you an example. 2022, INEC, relying on the old law, released the timetable for the date for election as February 18, 2023. But because the president did not sign the law until 25th, are you with me? INEC had to now change the date for 2023 election from February 18 to February 25. Because returning February 18 will be against the 360 days window that it was meant to give. So right now, people just look at this. I believe that National Assembly is being mischievous. And I will say it to their faces if they are seated there. Okay. The reason, let me say this very quickly. See, they have spent 2 years on electoral reform, on constitutional alteration. Claire and Jumai, the best approach this National Assembly ought to have taken is to have expedited action on constitutional alteration first. First, pass the Constitution. Because when the Constitution is passed and certain provisions have impact on Electoral Act, you know, the Constitution will just give one paragraph solution. The adumbration, the explanation usually comes in the act. For instance, the Constitution says campaign INEC will audit account of political parties. That is what you will see in the Constitution. But the Electoral Act now said political parties will submit 1, annual report, 2, election expenses report, 3, election contributions report. You will not find election expenses report, election contributions report in the Constitution. So the point I'm making is that if this process were to be made seamless, the National Assembly within 1.5 years, maximum 2 years, should have passed the Constitution. Then from that Constitution, the moment it's altered, then they can now use the aspect that has to do with electoral reform to now amend the Electoral Act. Because the Electoral Act is a subsidiary legislation to the Constitution. The way we are proceeding now, even if tomorrow, assuming without conceding, as it said in law, that the National Assembly is able to get this whole thing across to the President and he signs before February 25th. And by June, they now pass the Constitution. And some of the constitutional provisions they pass have impact on the Electoral Act. You will now still have to take the same Electoral Act back to now be altered again. That's why we now have different versions of the Electoral Act that you don't even know which one is the other.
But you know, my concern is IPAC chairman is sitting very comfortably. Civil society groups are crying, wolf seem to be crying more than the bereaved. IPAC chairman, I mean, this affects members of your members, yes, and your constituency.
We have tried to do what we need to do. I agree to most of the submission of my dear brother Jide. The whole problem is about National Assembly doing what they are supposed to do for Nigerians. And that is why when I was talking earlier, I said I was being euphemistic that some persons who are in opposition today, who are within this coalition on all the things, who want to take power, they had the opportunity to do what they want to do today that they didn't do yesterday. So the same thing will affect those who are there today who refuse to do it. It's just like the issue of State Independent Electoral Commission and INEC. A man who is a senator who won maybe some 9-10 local government to become a senator. You now, because he's not in the same party with the governor of his state, and the state election, local government election, he cannot win one councillorship position for himself. The man who won 9 to 10 local government to become what he is. So some of these things, we must be very sincere, and we have to look, what exactly do we want as Nigerians? What do we want? So until we go back to the foundation of what we want to achieve with this democracy, it will be difficult. Because we are not, how can you have the National Assembly, the House of Reps, and the Senate coming up with 2 different versions of
after several meetings,
you understand? And this alone is a major problem that we have today. So we had a meeting with INEC last week, and the same issue you are raising is the same thing that INEC. Because INEC does not know what to do, either to go ahead and roll out the timetable or to wait. But at the end of the day, if we get to that 25th, which is just few days ahead, and INEC doesn't get anything, which is likely to happen, the INEC will have no option than to roll out. So we'll still have to rely and conduct the election based on the previous...
now you're getting back to the question I asked you then. Must INEC wait? I asked you that question earlier. And we were saying that the Senate, the Senate is being accused of delaying and watering down some of these reforms. Tell me, how would this, affect legislative process, the public transparency, and of course, interpretative confusion of people about the law? Because Nigerians are really not... look, Nigerians are saying we don't even know what's happening out there.
I will continue to say I have a different approach. I am a student of the school, Obafemi Awolowo School of Thought. He says the problem is anything which man may not or may not be conscious, which affects or is likely to affect adversely and or which hinders the attainment of his goals and the satisfaction of his need. And any failure, whether deliberately or inadvertent, to recognize and solve instant problems, it will complicate and make the solutions of both the old and new problems more instructible. So if you are solving a problem, you have to look at the foundation of the problem. The entire democratic space is so monetized. It is so lucrative that, with due respect to some, most of us, but where people go to public office, not to serve, but for personal interest, in most cases, we will continue to have this problem. So it's not even about the electoral laws, for me. It's about the goals, the office being occupied. Are these offices actually being used for the benefit of the people? Do we have our accountability? Nobody is talking about corruption.
Talking about public, can you talk about
Corruption-
public transparency here now?
That's corruption. For all we are saying, for all we do, we are not talking about corruption. What corruption has done to our democracy. We are not talking about our democracy at the local level, which is the closest. We are talking about election only at the state and national level. The government that is closest to the people. Nobody is talking about
that. That is why.
These are my pains. So, and this is where the problem is. You cannot begin to dress the roof of this building when the foundation is faulty.
Okay,
so we must overhaul the entire system. We must overhaul the lucrativity of public office.
Thank you. That's the lucrativity. That's why I would like us to shift to clause 22. Which of course is on PVC offences, vote buying and all that. There was what will I say? The issue put forward was for a 10-year jail term, but that was rejected. Instead, the Senate approved 2-year jail term.
They retained the 2 years.
But increased the fine from 2 million
to 5 million.
To 5 million. And the question is this increase in fine, without a longer prison sentence, will it deter vote buying? Let me start with you, Chidi.
Well, in criminology, they usually say punishment and fines can never deter crimes. However, what we need to do is to prevent and nip in the bud the consequences and the cost of vote buying in itself. If we are able, that's why people are clamoring for electric transmission of results. Why? Because they believe that, the polling unit is the primary place where the election takes place. They believe that if the from EC8A is transmitted to the IREV portal, online real time, that there will be less time for manipulation. That is what I say. But I'm saying that the increase in punishment will not deter, will not prevent. In fact, it will increase it because the politicians are money bag. They target the people. They purposely make the people to be hungry. During the election, they will now bring out rice, bring out tomato, and start giving to the people. The people, they don't have anything. Their hands are tied. They are hungry. A hungry man is an angry man. And when there is an emergency, anybody can do anything. So the collect say, since you have been in power for 4 years, you have not given me anything. Now you are giving me rice and tomato. Let me collect the rice and tomato. Whatever will happen, let it happen. So increase or decrease in fine or punishment can never prevent crime or vote buying.
I like the fact that you say an angry man is an angry electorate. Well, if you're angry enough, the way I look at it myself, if you're angry enough, then you should make changes to your voting, because it is your right to change. Even if you're hungry and you're angry, you must look for change itself. And
not to collect.
Not to collect. I always like to, we don't always ask all the questions. I always like to read some of the messages that came in so that our guests will be able to respond to them, because the time we have is not enough. Let me read from Muhammad Awal Musa Afamai from Greenwald Observers Limited, Kanu. The Senate rejected a proposal to mandate real-time electronic transmission of results, instead giving INEC discretion over the method. How can we ensure our community votes are protected if the law doesn't strictly mandate that results are uploaded immediately at the polling unit? Good morning, Nigeria. And Michael Uchebe said, the 10th Senate should, as a matter of national interest, salvage our growing democracy by ensuring that real-time electronic transmission of results is upheld. Nigerians are watching, and we believe they will get it right. We have just 11 months to go and no election timetable yet. Please, the Senate should expedite action.
Okay, sorry. Let's deal. We'll come to the, let's deal with the issue of the vote buying and the penalty, because it appears that Judy, they target is on the voters themselves. But we didn't see anything on those who are sponsoring the offense itself.
While you respond to the questions our viewers said, so you can just join it.
Let me say this. Campaign finance is my forte. And I've trained, I've built capacity, I've been involved in reform around that. My own position is, again, National Assembly is being mischievous. There was a proposal that they should criminalize vote buying during party primaries, which was rejected. Why would you reject that? But we know how politicians monetize that party primaries and nomination process. So much so that even foreign exchange is used to induce delegates. If you are doing delegate system, where, I mean, it's in the news, 2022, some people fought tooth and nail to be a delegate, and some end up being millionaires by the time they are going back. But now there was a proposal to criminalize that. They said no, they left it out. That's to tell you the mischief. And that's why Alhaji Dantale is hammering that sometimes what you fail to do now may haunt you in another 4 years, because you have a lifelong, or you have a life opportunity to correct the wrongs, but you are not doing it. To me, issue of whether you increase jail term or increase fine is neither here nor there. And let me explain myself. The point is, lawyers will tell you, a day in prison, you are an ex-convict. Just 1 day. Even half a day. You spend half a day in prison. The offense carry 1 day imprisonment. You cannot hold public office again unless you receive state pardon. So it's not the length of time. Whether you spend 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, is immaterial. The question we should ask, again, I tell the National Assembly that they have not been fair to Nigerians. There is a bill before them which has been there since 2008, which is Electoral Offences Commission Bill. What does that bill seek to achieve? The mischief it was meant to cure is this issue of impunity, where people will commit electoral malfeasance, electoral east, and get away with it. Over 1,000 people were arrested in 2023 for electoral offenses. Clear and Juma, let's ask INEC how many convictions have been recorded. How many vote buyers are in prison or have been made to pay fine? There is a popular, very important personality in Ogun State which was caught in the web of vote buying. The case is still in court. Another election is here. Another election is due in less than 1 year.
INEC will tell you don't have the powers to prosecute.
That is why we are saying give it to an independent body that will have the power not just to arrest, but to also investigate and prosecute. Right now, the mischief in the law is that you have a law that gives INEC prosecutorial power, but does not give INEC power to make arrest or power to investigate. You domicile those powers in the police. And the power to prosecute is even a shared power between INEC and Office of Attorney General. Because the Attorney General can file a null prosecute and say the state is not interested in this case again. We have seen it happen. So the point is, when politicians, and apologies because I know this man is a gentleman, I don't know whether he should call himself a politician. but when we cannot but say politicians and the kind of desperation they bring to bear on the electoral process, winning at all costs, has been their forte. So you criminalize vote buying. The law right now is section 121 and section 121 and 127 that have criminalized vote buying right now. But the question I keep asking is, okay, these laws are there. They have been there from 2001 Electoral Act, 2002 Electoral Act, 2006 Electoral Act, 2010 Electoral Act, 2022 Electoral Act. how many convictions in the last 27 years have we recorded? Do we have up to 20% conviction rate?
What do you think should be done? How can that be harmonized?
The point is, they have an independent body. That is why Justice Muhammad Lawal Uwais Electoral Reform, Presidential Committee on Electoral Reform said, have an independent, just like you have EFCC dealing with economic crime. Now have a separate body, Electoral Offences Commission, being in place.
Jide, I know you are concerned about cost. I know you are concerned about,
about
bureaucracy.
Cost, but what about the impunity that reigns currently? Let me tell you something. INEC has a total staff strength of about 16,000, 16,500. Just a fraction of that are lawyers. Now, all the lawyers in INEC, both at the headquarters and state offices, are busy going from one court to the other. When parties conduct primaries and there is litigation arising from that, they will serve INEC. So INEC will have to engage to the extent that INEC, the bill on INEC in outsourcing legal representation is so huge, and they don't have the budget. I don't know whether I'm making sense. They don't have the budget. So right now, INEC had to, every time a politician or party takes INEC to court, they have to either get a senior advocate or any lawyer to go and represent them at a cost. Now, the cost is not there, the money is not there, and that's why Justice Uwais, in his wisdom, after they sat for 16 months and make that recommendations. Alongside that, SEC should be scrapped, that there should be an Electoral Offences Commission that will be solely responsible for arrest, investigation, and prosecution of electoral offenders.
Okay, Dantale, I know you said you would we will have to let you go very soon, but let's now touch on the transmission. I know you're passionate. You want to talk about that. But my question to you, as IPAC chairman, is: does the discretion, because it's obvious that the decision of the Senate is to give INEC discretionary powers, to transmit the results. But does these discretionary powers, does it strengthen or dilute the integrity of the election?
One major problem we have with the system in this country is issue of trust. That as Nigerians, we do not really trust the system. We must do what we can to see that we boost the trust, the integrity of the system. And some of these things are because we rush into providing solutions. Today, we are talking about e-transmission. It's a welcome development. It's good. But the question will now be, what do we need to transmit election electronically? Do we need the internet? I'm not a student of IT, so I don't really know what is required. If INEC is to do that, INEC is supposed to come to tell Nigerians, do you have what it takes to provide for transmission? If you don't, who are the agencies that you need to partner with? Is it NCC? Is it NITSDA? Is it the service provider? So if you need all this, what are the laws guiding these other institutions? How will they be? How will their own conduct be backed by law? In event of failure of ABC, who is to be held responsible for the failure of this or for the failure of that? That is one part. The same way we have bank apps that it will work this minute, the next minute it will not work, or you will make a transaction and then it will indicate that the money has left your account, but the recipient will say, no, I have not received it, and we have to wait. So in the event that we have the glitch, in quote, a failure, what would be the backup And what is the law that will back that option? So until we are able to look at this, I think for me, we don't need to be in a hurry. It is a welcome development to have this, but we must bring in the stakeholders and then the laws that will guide the conduct of each and every institution that be responsible for the e-collation/transmission of result is done. We have that guarantee. We don't. Who owns the internet? We have situations today. Our phones are being hacked, bank accounts are being hacked. Even what happened in the name of glitch, we do not really understand what exactly how it happened. If it was an maybe external incursion.
And all these things need power.
Thank you. So do we have the power? So we must look at all these things. So INEC is required to come and tell Nigerians, do you have what it takes to transmit? If you don't have, what do we need? So, but it will be.
But don't you think INEC have already laid that on the table before the Senate and the National Assembly?
No, INEC have not come out to say we cannot.
Okay.
Until INEC say we can or we cannot, and then we all know the agencies that INEC will need to partner with to embark on this transmission. We must be careful what we are demanding.
So, you are now. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chidi, how much transparency is out there?
Well, people don't have faith in the system, especially INEC system, because sometimes the masses believe that INEC is kowtowing to the intentions and whims and caprices of those in power. Let me give you, for example, the glitch that happened in 2023 presidential election. The people that provided the service, Amazon Web Services, said from their system that there was no glitch in Nigeria. This is their testimony before the Election Petition Tribunal, that there was no glitch in Nigeria. This is what they said. But how INEC, on an important day of an election, after spending 300 and something billion to acquire the equipment and the digital machine for election, on the day of the presidential election, you now declare that there was a glitch on the day of the election. Well, I don't think that story should be for the Marines. Nobody can believe that, and I don't believe that. Now, why people are also clamoring for this transmission of results? Remember, in the presidential election, when the Labour Party went to court, get a CTC of the election result, INEC said that what they have in their server is blood, and then make excuses. And there was no atonement. There was no repercussion for what happened in that transaction.
Heads didn't roll.
Heads didn't roll. Why would you continue in such a... So there is no transparency. There is no integrity of the electoral process. That's why people are clamoring. In fact, some people say that people should go to the Senate today and carry their wife and the children to persuade the Senate President, Honorable Godswill Akpabio, and his co-conspirators in the name of a chief whip and the deputy Senate President. They are the people that are trying to truncate the transmission of the result. If you watch the last plenary, they have already planned what they are going to say. Senate chief whip Mohammed Tar Mongono stood up and said, I want to make submission. The Senate President had allowed him to make the submission. Then the Senate Deputy President stood up and said, I second.
Chidi, we don't want
sorry, this is the national TV. Please. I don't want to say so. So what I'm saying that process that happened that day, people believe that it was a contrived process in order to delay or to prevent the promulgation of transmission of results in the Senate. That is the perception out there.
Let me ask you, because IPAC chairman made an analogy with the bank transactions,
yes,
where, of course, alerts, do delay, but eventually they do come. Should we understand real-time transmission in the same practical sense as a bank transaction?
Yeah. My own position is that the issue of transmission should be properly encoded in Section 60, Subsection 5. However, there must be some other subordinate clauses supporting the section. In case there's glitch, this is what we are going to do. In case there is this is what we are going to do. But the issue of transmission should be there because we are also doing transaction. Remember, JAMB is doing digital. Remember, WAEC has also announced that all the election, all the result and the examination should be digital. There is no place in Nigeria where there is no secondary school to write WAEC exam. So what are they going to do? So we are also calling for institutional strength, institutional support. We can support INEC. INEC can also get the services of other service providers on election day. Maybe Starlink. Starlink is a satellite provider, which can cover the whole country.
Starlink is not a Nigerian.
It's not enough just to provide the server. So I'm saying that transmission is good, but also there should be other support. Instead of throwing the baby away with the dirty bathwater, it should be inculcated in the Electoral Act Amendment, and then let there be other subordinate clauses written in clear and elegant manner to support what INEC will do in case there's a glitch or in case there's a failure. That is my own position.
And tell you, what could lack of clarity here trigger in the electorate?
It is when there is problem of trust, it will be difficult to convince. But Nigeria is more or most important. Nigeria is greater than anybody. Nigeria is greater than the presidency. Nigeria is greater than the National Assembly. Nigeria is greater than whoever. But whatever we are seeking, my own issue is this is a welcome development. But we mustn't pass law based on anxiety.
What is a welcome development for IPAC? What is it, the real-time transmission or the discretionary powers that Senate has given?
Both. But what was for the real-time transmission? My issue is now you talk about Starlink. Who owns Starlink? He's a businessman.
Let's put you on hold. Let's put you on hold, please. We'll come back.
Break.
Yes. Let's go on a short break. We'll be right back.
Yeah, welcome back, and we're still discussing the Electoral Act Bill Part 2, and we have our guest seated here in the studio. And Ntele, you were responding to Claire's question earlier, and I'm going to ask you a question so that you can join us. We're going to let you go in a few minutes. Who benefits from this ambiguity in result transmission? Is it the voter or the politicians themselves?
The voter don't benefit. I don't want to say some persons, but there are some things I cannot say here. But then we all know that until we clean up the system, until we service in Nigeria is made to attract those who really want to serve, not those who have the money to pay to buy the system, including the voters who continue to have these problems. Why must all these things continue to happen? People get to public office tomorrow, they become super millionaires without any business.
And then come and monetize the election.
Monetize the system, and then you cannot separate our social and economic life from our political life. The average Nigerian is poor. He needs to eat, he needs to survive. So if you things offered to him, he will do what he doesn't want to do ordinarily. So we must come out as Nigerians to say this is exactly what we want. So that those who really want to serve, we must clean up the local level. We must clean up the mess in State Independent Electoral Commission so that we don't just focus our attention on state elections and presidential elections. So people can, at least for those who cannot do anything at the state and national, can focus on the local, because this is government as closer to the people. The insecurity, the social vices that we have in Nigeria today at the local government level that farmers cannot go to the farm is largely responsible to the inability of local government to function. So it is not just the INEC, it is not just the National Assembly, even the judiciary must be cleaned. Because I believe the judicial arm also wants some of this, some persons in the judiciary or some element in the judiciary want some of this confusion. So that we at the end of the day, we will now have things to take to the court and begin to argue and make noise. So we must be sincere with all we do as Nigerians, at the executive level, at the legislative level, at the judicial level, and as Nigerians. It is complicit. Today you want the political parties to perform miracle, where the political parties are handicapped financially, where a few political parties, those who are in government, for instance, have the paraphernalia of the office at their disposal to do whatever they want to do when it comes to managing political parties and campaign.
Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you, because IPAC is a conglomeration of parties.
Correct.
Both small and big.
Correct.
And the smaller parties, in quotes now, feel that at the point of manual collation is the most vulnerable in the whole electoral
Not everybody knows that.
Okay. So, do you now feel that this position that you have said, both the e-transmission, real-time transmission, and discretionary powers conferred on INEC, do you now feel it's inadvertently put smaller parties at a disadvantage?
I will continue to say this. I don't really look at symptoms or problems. I look at the real solution, the foundation of the problem. IPAC have said this several times, that the power to appoint INEC chairman and INEC commissioner must be taken away from the executive. There should be an independent body to appoint INEC officials. So that is the first step. The funding of INEC must be independent. Then the lucrativity of public office in Nigeria must be reviewed.
How does that guarantee transparency and trust?
That is the foundation of the problem. It is about cause and effect. It is value. Why must our political actors continue to circumvent all the laws? For what reason? Excuse me, ma. We talked about vote buying, for instance. It's the same thing with what is happening in insecurity. For instance, the terrorism or banditry. Now we have a lot of victims, that we call them. The boys who are carrying AK-47, who are being killed. The boys who, do they actually have the money to buy the AK-47? Who is sponsoring them? Why is the law quick to arrest and kill or prosecute the boys? We
the
should
foot soldiers.
The people behind it. Who are the drivers of these things?
So we need to look for the people behind.
We have come up with the issue of registration of our SIM card so that we can identify each line tied to who, but it is still not working. The same insecurity is where it is. Ransoms are being collected. Same phone lines are being used. So we have to be sincere at all levels. So yes, we have to be sincere.
So what's your final take?
My final take is, one, I thank Nigerians and I appeal to Nigerians to be calm, but that shouldn't mean they shouldn't protest when there is need to protest, because it's within their right. But for whoever at the National Assembly, at the executive, we must look at why we are really serving. Today, if you think you are benefiting from it, tomorrow you'll be a victim. It's a must. It's a vicious circle. It will come. So we have to do what is right. But for the e-transmission and all we want about sanitization of the electoral process, we have to be very careful in what we demand.
Indeed.
So we don't fall victim of our own demand at the end of the day.
Yes, the law is not just about trust. Where laws are unclear, power fills the gap. So, Yusuf Dantale, Chairman, Interparty Advisory Council, IPAC, thank you so much for coming. As always, we appreciate your contribution to the conversation.
All right, so let's come back to Jide, because yes, I'm just wondering. I mean, you heard IPAC chairman, talk glowingly about, the means of appointing, INEC executives and all that. I'm just wondering, might it be naivety, or are we naive to think that that is the solution? Isn't the use of technology that we're running away, real-time transmission, part of the broader reform?
So for me, I will say this anytime, any day. Concerns are raised. First, what Alhaji Dantale was saying about having an independent INEC. The train has left the station. We now have a new INEC chairman and national, and this is why timelines are very important. Because when they were making those advocacies, I was looking at the tenure of this person will soon last. Once the appointment is made, it starts for 5 years. You cannot even summarily remove an INEC person or commissioners without recourse to the National Assembly. Now, we are on this e-transmission. My own position is this. I support e-transmission with a caveat that if real-time upload, and we need to define what is real-time.
I asked that question earlier.
Because real-time, when you get to the judiciary will ask you, oh, this was eventually uploaded, so what is your issue? You say, oh, it wasn't uploaded within the first 1 hour. You say, oh, that is your own interpretation of real-time. Real-time can be anything. It's like when you say gross misconduct as a basis for removing or impeaching a governor, and you say he has committed gross misconduct. You don't even need to expatiate on what is gross misconduct.
But real time is now.
Real time is now. How feasible is now? 176,846 polling units, and everybody transmitting the same. And let's also be very careful about something. Do you know this whole everywhere that we are making about e-transmission? I've stated my position. I'm all for it. But we need to understand, and I think many Nigerians don't understand, that the IRF portal is not a collation database. It's not going to, as you upload, it will tell you who is winning, who is losing. No, it's the EC8A form that you will use beavers to snap and then upload. So those who have downloaded this result from IRF portal will tell you it's still the EC8A form that is pasted at the polling unit that is given to the police and polling agent that you are uploading. What it does is to enhance transparency of the administrative management of result. Let me put it that way. So now you are going to, and this is why I am saying, in line with what my learned friend said, there must be a caveat. When you say electronic transmission, real time, can we actually define what real time is? What is the timeline of a real time? So that when it's outside of that timeline, you know that you have failed the integrity test of a real time.
Let me just so because we have very, time is going, so that you can just explain this to us, because some people have provided some data to show that even INEC in the past elections have actually transmitted results real time from in Anambra, Osun, and Ekiti governorship elections.
It's not the same thing.
Okay.
Ekiti, I just came back from Ekiti. The total polling unit in Ekiti is 2,445 or thereabout. You are talking of presidential election, which is what everybody, they are not saying it. Many are not saying it. This whole e-transmission, e-real time is focusing on the presidential election. INEC had never had issues with other layers of election. And the big prize in every election is the presidential seat. That's what people want to occupy. So I'm saying, you want to recruit people in NTA now, make announcement and say the portal will be open for 5 hours. It will crash. The level of people, because people will be doing it at the same time.
So what's the issue? Why is it not possible?
For me is that when you are transmitting electronically results from 176,446 polling units about the same time, depending on the width, is it the width or the bandwidth?
The bandwidth.
There may be some delay in the upload. Even when you are uploading on your Facebook, social media handle, you could see that sometimes when there is downtime, it takes a while to upload. And when the internet service is optimal, it uploads very quickly. The point I'm making, without much sweat, is that we need to have a caveat. If real time is not possible, it should not invalidate the outcome of that election. The reason I'm saying this is that election is too expensive. And don't forget, it's just an additional layer of transparency, because it doesn't remove the manual collation process. You are still going to move the result from polling unit to what? From what? To local government, from local government to state, from state to federal level.
Yes.
If you are doing this, so what you are uploading on the IRF portal is just for people like Dantale and his constituents who wants to do parallel vote tabulation. And then the civil society who has also been funded to do parallel vote tabulation, they can now download it and do an independent vote tally to be able to get a sense of who is winning and who is losing. But we must not also forget a section of the law, section 65 of the current Electoral Act, which has given INEC 7 days within which it can review what a returning officer has announced.
Okay, that brings me back, to, under this amendment now, can we guarantee that results will not be altered before collation?
Will not be
altered before collation?
No, there is a way results, not all, some results could be altered. Now, this is legit. You see, the old section 60 have different subsections, and collation officers are empowered. There could be issues with a polling unit result. For instance, maybe in the course of counting, you said this ballot paper was completed midway. There could be issue. Now, when you escalate it to the ward level, the ward collation officer can decide whether that result is okay or not. So what the IRF now does is that the law currently in 2022 Act says that when there is dispute on election result, the collation officer is supposed to see what is on the IRF and then compare it to what has been submitted, because there could be falsification between polling unit and the collation center. So it was meant to be a kind of integrity test. But what I found out in my own experience is that many collation officers are not doing the right thing. But, they are not doing what they are supposed to do,
yes,
as to be able to ensure the ballot integrity.
Okay, Chidi, again, I'm just wondering if a transmission, requires high-speed internet connectivity, can't, results be uploaded once there is connectivity?
Well, I'm not a digital expert, but what I'm saying is that from EC8A, polling unit results, for you to maintain the integrity and transparency of the election, the results should be, in addition to signing and collecting to the RA collection center, should be uploaded instantly. Whether it is real time or any other name they call it, but let it be transmitted immediately, so that you have opportunity to compare what is in IRF with what the polling unit of a polling officer took to the collation center.
What if the polling officer did not sign the Form EC?
It doesn't invalidate the result.
It doesn't invalidate, because he is there. Different political party agents are already there. When he signs, people will see the number of votes cast there.
Yes,
then they will upload it to the system. Where the manipulation happens is between polling unit and collation center. By the time they are collating, they will not just say, give us any figure. Because if they go to court, they cannot, they cannot prove rigging. Why? It is impossible to prove rigging in election, especially presidential election. As already said by my friend, 176 polling units is what we have in Nigeria. And the Supreme Court has said, for you to prove irregularity over voting, you must bring polling agents that participated in the election to say before the court what happened there. How many, and you have limited time, within maybe 1 week to present all your witnesses, and the court has 180 days to deliver judgment. So it is practically impossible to prove irregularity in election.
I have this question, and it's my last question before Jube. It says, with internet penetration projected at over 46% by 2026 and more than 110 million Nigerians online, do political parties still accept technology as a marginal tool? Jide.
As a marginal tool?
In 30 seconds, please.
I'm not sure the issue is about. One thing has come to stay. We cannot do away with technology in our electoral process. But people will tell you, you need to hurry slowly so that you don't also get into... The reason, my own final submission on this is actually that let those caveats, safeguards, what are the safeguards? If for whatever reason there is no instant, for lack of high-speed internet service, if it cannot be done within the time frame that is defined as real time, that should not invalidate the outcome of the election, because there is an alternate, which is the manual collation. So once that is assured, we are able to see for ourselves that there is no mischief. The problem INEC has, which has increased doubt and distrust in INEC, was that there was no independent audit of what happened in 2020.
Okay, Jide, we have to pause you there. You know, we've run out of time. Jide Ojo, public affairs analyst and author. Thank you so much for coming. As always, it's been a very, very interesting conversation. Chidi Odo, Esquire, legal practitioner and public affairs commentator. We appreciate you. We hope you'll be back again so that we sort of break down some of this. Yes, inshallah. So that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you so much for watching. I am Juma Yusuf.
All right, just to appreciate Professor Halifa Dikwa, you sent in your message. Thank you very much. I am Claire Delabo Abdulrazak. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.